Okay, there we go. You can see, guys, I'm totally unprepared. I just walked into this room. I got the sketch still there from earlier on. Anyway, we're gonna wipe that out. Um, we're doing something different tonight, and that is that normally on Tuesdays, we have a webinar which starts at 8 o'clock. Somebody asked me, hey, Eric, when do you want to do the Mind Explained? I said, well, Wednesdays and 7 seems to be good. And we normally have dinner from 6 to 7, so the whole thing went awry. Anyway, it's good to be here, and we're gonna do something great tonight. It's great to see some guys already have the camera on. I see Mary. I see you on screen. Mary, it's good to have you. Fantastic. Jordi, you seem to be like lazily relaxing or something like this, having a good time there in the sofa. It's good to see you, Jordi. Then we have Gabriela. Okay, I got your camera on. I see that, but I don't see your face. Maybe we're gonna see it tonight. So who else do we have? We have Anita. We have Jordi. We got Gabriela. We got Kyle. Okay, guys. Kyle has been here more than 40 times already. Absolutely loves these webinars. Loves the information that we share. Sabrina, welcome. We got Ruth all the way from, what was it, Ruth? Kenya? Good to have you. Mary O'Sullivan, great. Debs, you ordered a book last night, didn't you? And I actually got it posted today. So it was great. Awesome, guys. So we are just about 10 tonight on Zoom. We're also recording the webinar, and it's going to be recorded on YouTube and posted on YouTube later on. I think we're even on Instagram and on Facebook. So my name is Eric. Hello. The quick introduction about this whole thing, the Mind Explained, is a very simple one, and that is that a lot of people are actually looking for solutions. They're dealing with stuff like, what is holding me back? What is actually causing me trouble? What is causing me stress? What is limiting my potential? And what can I do to make real improvements? What can I do to better myself? So what we're going to do, we're basically going to take information from this international bestseller, Dianetics, and we're going to talk about that in a series of 3 webinars. Now, you can totally tell, like, I may come across right now as being very, very excited. And actually, I am. We tried this a few times already. We did a few pilots in December, and people absolutely loved the data. So right now, we're actually going to start it for real, right? Now, why this book? There is a lot of psychology books around. There's a lot of self-help books around. There's a lot of motivational books around. But there's no book around that tells you exactly what the mind is, what limits your potential, and how you can fix that. Now, I'll just read the first paragraph on the inlay, and it says, containing discoveries heralded as greater than the wheel or fire, Dianetics has remained a bestseller for more than 50 years. With over 20 million copies in print, generating a movement that spans over 100 nations, it is indisputably the most widely read book ever written about the human mind. So, the author has done a lot of research in the field of the mind. And you can actually find that he is 4 times in the Guinness Book of Records. This person has done some serious research and came up with real solutions. Okay, now that is just the introduction here. I completely skipped the first part, what we always normally do. Let's do a little introduction from you guys, and then we're gonna dive into it. Maybe just want to share quickly in the group where you're from and what prompted you what motivated you to come here tonight. The chat is open. You can ask any question anytime. If you're not tracking, feel free throughout the webinar. It's just gonna be like an hour, and we're just gonna smash it. We're gonna give you one datum after another. But let's just start here, slow pace, and then we're gonna take off. Where you're from, and if you're a fast typer, maybe you want to share with us what prompted you, what got you motivated to join the webinar tonight. And that gives me a minute to wipe this out. No worries, it's going to come back later on. Okay, so hello from Kenya. I saw that. Hello from Dublin. All right, I want to achieve my full potential. I love that, Sabrina. That is really great. Okay, who else? Mary, are you typing? You're typing? Okay. Let's just see what's happening here. I'll just give you guys a minute, and then we're gonna get going. Jordi, that is one of my countrymen. Utrecht. Harmelen. Okay, fantastic. Hey guys, so I'll Universität. Sehr gut. Das habt ihr gut gemacht. Okay, good. So I'm gonna continue, guys, while you're typing. I'm just gonna take it slow for the very first minute. So this book, Dianetics, it has a kind of like an unfamiliar name, right? Dianetics. Where does it come from? Let's clear it up. Let's get some markers and let's get going. So, Dianetics. I put it here with a little bit of a hyphen. Dia it comes from Greek, meaning through. Netics comes from the word nous, which is the Greek word for mind, or soul. In other words, through the mind, or what the mind is doing to you, or what the mind is doing to your body. Maybe your mind can cause that stress, right? That is what Dianetics is all about. We're going to actually dive into that. All right, good. So Mary joining from Ireland, very interested in learning further about the human mind. That is great. Okay, Anita Hemmings from West Midlands, UK, following up on an introduction from Erik. However, I do need to learn more about the mind. Absolutely. And then we have, thank you, Anita. Then we have Jason, hello from Cork. Okay, guys, that's great. So that clears up Dianetics. And we read on, it says Dianetics, in other words, through the mind, what the mind is doing to you, how the mind affects you, how the mind affects your body. And then it says the modern science of mental health. I just wanted to clear up the word science with you guys, and just wanted to pop up a quick definition on the screen for you. And there we have it. So science comes from the Latin word scio, meaning knowing. So we would say science is the knowledge that we would have in a particular area. Now, it gets very interesting. I gave an example last night. Let's say you have a car and your engine is not running too well. Now, obviously, you might be very interested in knowing why the engine has problems. And you might also be interested in, can it be fixed? So you could imagine walking over to a garage, talking to a mechanic, and not knowing really sure if you had the right person, and you would ask, sir, do you know anything about engines? And the person would say yes. You might ask this question, well, do you know how an engine works? And the person says, yeah, sure, of course. And you might bring up, you say, well, my engine is stuttering. It's not performing well. Would you be able to locate the error? Would you be able to find out what causes that engine to malperform? And he said, yeah, for sure. And then you might then say, well, can you fix it? And once again, you will say yes, for sure. So you want to take this whole concept into the field of the mind, that you want to know what is the mind in the first place. Then secondly, you say, well, I got these ups and downs, or I got these mood swings, or I got these depressions, or I got these unwanted emotions, or I got these uncertainties, I got this lack of confidence. Why is that happening to me? And then, can you fix it? Right? Now, if we have all that, we have a body of data applicable to the mind. And when we have that, you can actually read on. It says, a systematic way in which we can acquire further knowledge. Science will help you to predict outcomes, getting results. In other words, we're going to make this whole thing so very practical that once you know it and you actually start to apply it, you can actually make predictions about what is going to happen. Predictions such as your IQ will go up, your confidence will better, you will start to be able to do things that you couldn't do before. In other words, you get more able. Okay? So for that reason, it is the modern science, right? With Dianetics, one really gets results. Okay, good. Now, when we open the book, and I hope I'm going to inspire you tonight. Some people here actually have this book. Some people here may want to acquire the book. Later on in the evening, we'll provide you with a special link. But if we're going to open the book, then there is going to be an important note. And I'm just going to read a small section of that for you. And you can actually read along with me because it's going to pop up on the screen here. Here's the important note. And you'll find out why this is so important. Like I just mentioned, we're actually dealing with a science. Now, a science has its own nomenclature. What does that mean? Nomen means names, names for words. So, just like in any science, you will find, for example, you study electronics, and you run into particular words that have to do with that particular science. Likewise, Dianetics has got its own nomenclature. Luckily for us, the number of words is actually kept to a very strict minimum so that actually a layman can fully understand this. But just keep in mind, it's a scientific book. It's not a novel. All right? So here it says, in reading this book, be very certain you never go past a word you do not fully understand. The only reason a person gives up a study or becomes confused or unable to learn is because he or she has gone past a word that was not understood. The confusion or inability to grasp or learn comes after a word the person did not have defined and understood. Now, you have probably seen this at some point in your life, and maybe more than once. Maybe you had this idea that you read a page, and at the end of the page, you were kind of like clueless as to what you had just read. Or maybe you just read an article in the newspaper or anywhere else, and you just got puzzled, like, what did I just read? So I'm going to give you an example how that works. And we're going to see the next example here on the screen. The crepuscule one, Dita. Good. So here's an example for you. Now, let's say this is just a random phrase. And this random phrase goes as follows. When the crepuscule comes, the children become a bit restless. And they want to go home. When it's not there, they continue to play. All right. So, right away, I have a question for you. Do you fully understand this sentence? Just a yes or a no, please. Let me have your input. Do you fully understand this sentence? Just a yes or a no. All right, so Ruth said no, Mary says no, Sabrina says no, Anita says no. All right, so I think we have some common agreement here, right? So now you got like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say 15. Let's say you got roughly 20 words there. 20 words in a phrase, and we don't get the concept or the meaning of that phrase. And of course, you guys have tracked already why it is that you are not getting this. And you could probably say, well, Erik, what is the meaning of that word crepuscule? So, of course, we put it in on purpose, right? Now, crepuscule is a Latin word, and it means twilight. It was actually once English. It just became archaic, meaning no longer in use, old. All right, so when we clear up the word crepuscule and we find out it is twilight. So when the twilight comes, the children becomes a bit restless, and they want to go home. And when it's not there, they continue to play. Is it clear now? Do you now get the meaning of the phrase? Yes or no? Exactly. Now we're getting it, right? Good. So, what has been done with this book to make it really easy for you is that when you go to the back of the book, you can see, you know, I've been using my highlighter, but in the back of the book, you actually have a glossary, and you can find all these hard to find words, not just the nomenclature, but all the hard to find words actually in the back of the book. In other words, it's like an added dictionary for you just to make it easy. Okay? So, now what just happened? I'm just going to demonstrate that by means of just one single picture. It's the guy that is going blank, and you get this idea. This is what has been happening to us when we went to school. This is the reason that we didn't get the proper grades, that we didn't pass a certain subject, maybe even that we dropped out of school. The reason that we doubled. It all boils back to misunderstanding, no understanding, right? So the reason I'm bringing it up here is that you're about to embark on a study which has to do with the mind, which is your most important asset. So it's really key that you understand this. Okay, let's continue. Now, we're just going to build this up with some key words, and then gradually we'll build up a better and better understanding of what the author, the researcher, is talking about. The funny thing that he does right away after the important note, he gives you a synopsis, and now you might think like, oh my God, what is the meaning of that word? Well, very simple. Just go to the back go to the glossary, you'll find that synopsis is just a brief summary, a short summary. And in about 7 to 8 pages, he lays out for you the entire book. He's giving you all the data in an avalanche. You can actually know what the book is about just by reading 7, 8 pages. And it's quite incredible how the whole workability of the mind is just laid out for you there. And one of the first words that actually is mentioned there is the word axiom. So we're just going to pop up that definition. Let me wipe this out. Axiom. All right. That is a statement of a natural law on the order of those of the physical science. So why don't you call it a natural law? Why do you have to call it an axiom and not a natural law? Okay, I'm going to give you the example right now. What I want you to do is just think of primary school. Think of primary school and see if you can actually get an image of the school itself, or perhaps the classroom. And you might actually see these images flashing by. You might get an image of the playground, the courtyard, maybe the corridor where you would walk through to get to your classroom. Maybe you could actually have an idea of where you were sitting in the classroom and where the blackboard would be, or the green board, or whiteboard, whatever it was, and where the teacher would sit, for example, where the windows were. Now, if you just got that, can you let me know if you got some flashes, if you got some pictures here? Just pop something in the chat, please. Did you actually get some pictures when I mentioned think about primary school? Did you actually get some pictures? All right. That's fantastic. All right, so everybody has actually seen pictures here. Now, if I would say, have you ever had a pet, like a dog or a cat or a bird or whatever, rabbit, a hamster, whatever, you might get a picture again. If I would say, well, think about a car that your parents owned, you're getting a picture again. You would say, well, think about the office. You get a picture. Or think about a means of transportation. You get a picture. So what's happening with these pictures? These pictures happen to be mental. They're not tangible. You cannot touch them. In other words, we're experiencing something that we cannot really express in means of mass or energy, or something tangible, something that we can touch. But we can definitely talk about something that we can perceive and that we can experience. So let's say, I would say, the mind makes pictures. That could be an axiom. It would be a statement of a natural law. You cannot prove it under the microscope, but you could see, well, everybody seems to think with pictures. So that could be an axiom. You could say that memories are stored. That would be an axiom. Those would be examples of axioms. It comes from Greek axioma, which means a self-evident truth. All right? Good. So, and we're actually going to encounter that word axiom a couple of times in the book. That's why it's important that you get it conceptually. All right. Now, we're going to continue with another word, and that word is psychosomatic. There we go. Psychosomatic. An interesting quote, and it says here, any physical disorder or ill generated by the body itself. It is not generated by an outside source, such as a bacteria or virus. It is the body doing something to the body itself. Okay, we're going to touch upon that in a moment. I just want to make sure you get it conceptually. It's the body doing something to itself. There's no bacteria, no virus, whatever involved. Now, if I would say anxiety stomach, you may have a good example there. Just an anxiety stomach. You have to go to a doctor or a dentist for an appointment or for a job interview, maybe for a speech, and you're just simply overwhelmed by nerves. And it seems that the body is doing something to itself. In this case, there's no virus, no bacteria involved in that anxiety stomach. All right? Good. So, let me see my notes quickly. Good. Let's draw something. Now, how would you normally feel when you have to do a talk in front of a group of people, or an exam, or a job interview, or you have to see a doctor or a dentist? Just a quick question. How does that normally make you feel? Can you just pop a word in the chat and just let me know, let everybody else know? How does that make you feel? All right, tense, anxious, nervous. All right, nervous and anxious. Thank you so much, guys. Good. Now, so you can imagine your body might be in balance, but when you get nervous, all of a sudden, your body might actually go out of balance. Okay? Now, your body actually, your glands, they are secreting liquids, fluids, and so on. And that out of balanceness might actually cause your hormones and other organs to produce too much of something or a lack of something. So you might, for example, get too much. And you might, for example, get too little, which is caused by this going out of balance, right? Now, normally, when you would see a doctor, they're trying to measure those flows and then see if they can correct it. However, what we are really interested about is what caused that thing to go there. What caused this balance to go out of balance? All right, and that could actually get you. Actually, could actually create a psychosomatic illness. Now, let me give you an example. Like, just got an example. If you have a doctor's visit coming up, or a dentist visit coming up, or a speech, or a job visit, or I don't know, anything major coming up, you might just get this anxiety stomach, right? And the whole thing would just go out of balance. And you notice you're gonna run for the toilet a couple of times. You start to sweat, perhaps to transpire. You got the anxiety feeling in your stomach. You might get, in case that you actually, for example, have to go on stage and talk, or just talk in front of a group of people, all of a sudden you get a dry throat. Even your mind is affected to the extent that you're stumbling. You don't know what to say. You go shy all of a sudden. In other words, a lot of things can happen. Now, that would be like a major kind of stress situation. But what if it's a minor stress kind of situation? Let's say you're overthinking. Let's say you're running around with troubles in your life. You cannot find direction. You cannot really achieve your goals. Something is keeping you busy. It's keeping your mind occupied all the time. Keeping you worried. How do I pay the rent? How do I make a living? Maybe it's not a major thing, but there's some stress there. Maybe it doesn't go all the way like that, but maybe it goes a little bit like this instead. And now we get something that is going to evolve gradually into a psychosomatic illness. Now, let's give you just an example that I just took from the internet. It doesn't even, the book gives you some examples, but there's a lot of common agreement on psychosomatic illnesses. Dita is here if you want to help me, Dita, with the picture, if you have it by any chance. Voila, there you go. So just saying, doctors, general practitioners, they commonly agree that more than 70%, more than 70% of all the illnesses that mankind has is actually psychosomatic, which is caused by your body going out of balance. And here you get, for example, you get, let me see, you get arthritis and other inflammatory disorders, diabetes, fibromyalgia, heart disease, high blood pressure, hypertension, very tense, right? Irritable bowel syndrome and other digestive issues, obesity, tension type headaches, various types of skin issues like psoriasis, eczema, seizures, sleep disorders, and so on. Now, you will find out while you are reading Dianetics, there is actually a chapter on psychosomatic illnesses. And what is going to happen is, if you bring that out of balance situation back into balance, the body will recover. The psychosomatic illnesses can be something of the past, totally. And that actually has been proven in more than 300 cases before he actually wrote the whole thing down in the book. So that is a serious promise, right? All right, good. So we're going to go on with the next word, and that is inorganic. All right, now before we take this up, is everybody still tracking? Are you still tracking, guys? Meantime, that allows me, while you're typing, a yes or a no. If you have any question, feel free to drop something in the chat. Just so far, are you still tracking? Cal says, absolutely. Anita says, yes, okay, that's great. Right, Debs, yes, awesome. Mary, awesome, yes. Okay, good. Everybody is tracking. Lovely, guys. Good job. So we're going to go back to organic. Here it says actually inorganic. In simply means not. English is built up with a lot of Latin words, and in is Latin, simply means not. So not belonging to the body or its parts. That is the meaning of inorganic. We have organs all over the place. The skin is an organ, your eyes are organs, the tongue, your lungs, and so on. These are all organs. When we're talking about something inorganic, we're talking about something that doesn't belong to your body or the body parts. Good. So now we're going to go to the next concept, fixed ideas. This is a very interesting one. Fixed ideas. Something that is accepted without personal inspection or agreement. And there's an example there. There's a person on the operation table and he is unconscious. The surgeon says to another surgeon, bosses can't be trusted. The unconscious person may now accept in his mind this fixed idea that bosses can't be trusted. Whenever an observer has fixed ideas, he tends to look at them, not at the information. So, let's say, let's wipe this off again. Let's do a little demonstration of the mind. So we remember that actually the mind makes pictures, right? Let's say this is your mind, and it just makes pictures since its early inception. You can just go back and actually get these pictures from your mind again. You can go back to high school, primary school, the moment you were on holidays, and you can just retrieve these pictures. They're recordings. Okay, so let's imagine here there was a moment there earlier in time and that person there was on the operation table in a hospital. He's got a picture of that. Maybe not a clear picture because he was unconscious, but it has been recorded. And he's over there on the operation table. There's two surgeons there. One surgeon says to the other, bosses can't be trusted. Nicely recorded somewhere in his mind. Let's say this is Jim. Jim has a conversation with Tom. Later on, 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, doesn't matter. And Tom says, but Jim, why don't you take it up with the boss? Jim's mind goes, boss, boss, and just retrieves the data from here. And Jim says, bosses can't be trusted. that would be a fixed idea. All right? That is just a portion of the mind that kind of like gives an automatic answer. We're going to go deeper into that. Like when you have an anxiety stomach, it's the same mechanism. It's putting an automatic impulse, answer, behavior there. Okay? So, a fixed idea, something accepted without personal inspection, without agreement, without his own agreement. And whenever this person has fixed ideas, he looks at the fixed ideas. Remember, these are mental image pictures. You cannot touch them. They're somewhere in the mind, lingering. But whenever he has fixed ideas, he uses those fixed ideas rather than looking at, let's say, rather than looking at the boss and see if the boss is actually approachable and genuine and honest and somebody who can be trusted. And then we get, very aptly, we're going to go to the next word, which is aberration. And here you actually see how that makes sense now. There it says aberration. Definition is ab, away, plus errare. Errare, think of error, making mistakes. So, any deviation or departure from rationality. Any deviation or departure from rationality. Meaning, any and all irrational behavior. An aberration is simply that. It's any and all irrational behavior. It basically means to err, to make mistakes, or more specifically, to have fixed ideas which are not true. And there you see that, for example, if a person says, I can never have money, that is a departure from his own rationality. They say, well, your brother's making tons of money. How come you're not making any money? He says, I wasn't born for this. Or something that you will hear quite often. I'm not good enough. No, I don't think I'm good enough. That is an aberration. It's a departure from rationality. Why is it so? Because actually it is something that keeps you down. It's like you are keeping yourself down, right? This is not good for your survival. What other examples can we have in society that you actually see happening a lot, right? I'm not good enough. That is certainly a big one. Something like, I don't dare to talk in public. I don't do these things. Well, I'm a bit afraid of what others might think of me. And the list is endless. There's all kinds of limitations, things that you cannot be, things that you cannot do, things that you cannot have. Any and all these are aberrations. When you cannot have things, it is actually limiting your survival potential. When you cannot do things, that is limiting your survival potential. Now, the desire that people really have is, I just want to be me. What do people mean by that? I just want to be myself. You want to be the better part of yourself, right? You don't want to have that stuff that holds you back somehow. So this is what we're going to handle with Dianetics. With Dianetics, we're going to get rid of these fixed ideas. We're going to get rid of these aberrations like a lack of self-confidence. I'm not confident to do this. Well, you would say, well, that's not really me. That's not how I want to be. That is not the kind of behavior that you want from yourself, right? That's why we call it an aberration. Now, just to see if you guys are tracking, can you put any example in the chat? Any example of any kind of irrational recurring thought or irrational behavior that is limiting an individual's survival potential? Is there something that right away comes to your mind that you'd say, oh, it's impossible to do this, impossible to have this, or to be? Just see if you can think of something. You might just run into something that you've always thought about yourself, a certain characteristic that you said, I'm not happy with this. Or maybe you know your dad or your mom or your brother, your sister, anybody else that is actually limiting himself or herself in a certain way by his thinking or limited thinking, limited behavior. And if you're tracking but you cannot get an example right away, just let me know that you're tracking. All right, I'll never be able to paint a picture. That's a good one, Kyle. It's simple, but there you go. Yeah, I wasn't born to be an artist, for example. Feeling like on the outside, looking in. That's great, Mary. All right, good. Now, so we're going to go to the next picture, and that actually says inorganic aberration. So, why did we just go through this whole thing? All these words in sequence? Because imagine you're doing a study on whatever it is that people do to limit their potential, or to do things that they even regret. These impulses that are not really good for you. Like, why do people go to war? Why do people steal? Why do people lie? Why do people go into hiding? Why are people dishonest? Why do they limit themselves? Why do they think less of themselves? We just want to exclude that the organs may or may not have anything to do with it. We just want to make sure, right? Does this come from a particular organ, or doesn't or is it so that the organ or organs don't have anything to do with that kind of thinking or that kind of behavior? So here you say that this next definition, inorganic aberration, will be some kind of a fixed idea or a wonder deviation from that has got nothing to do with the organs. All right? So now this is still very, very introductory. And this is all on the first page of the synopsis. It's actually going into the first pages of the synopsis. The first 2 pages. This is what we just covered. Now, that doesn't make the whole book unreadable, because basically all these hard to find words are very much in the beginning, and after that the whole book is like a song. It just flows, and once you've cleared up these key words, the whole thing just goes by itself. Now, there's an interesting thing that he brings up on the third page of the synopsis. Remember, synopsis, the short summary. And there, the first thing that he was very curious about is what makes us tick. What makes us act. What makes us do whatever we do in life. What is it that everything in this universe and all life seems to have in common? What is this one common denominator, this one common word for the physical universe and all life forms? Because should such an answer be found, then it might actually provide a solution as to how the mind is involved. And we're going to write that word down. It's an interesting one. Now, in between, just a quick question. Do you guys know that this is actually a series of 3 webinars? Because we actually promoted it as such, but maybe not everybody got that thoroughly. But do you know that it's a series of 3? All right, Jason. Okay, so that was new for you. Okay, Anita knows. Good. Kyle, you know. All right. So I'm glad I'm asking. So basically, it's 3 Wednesdays in a row. We're recording tonight. I think we're going to record the other 2 ones as well. That means that should you not be able to attend next week, we can still help you out with the recording. The whole idea is that we're going to go into 3 steps. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Next week, we're going to do a deep dive into that part of the mind that causes you all the trouble. The root source of your aberrations. The root source of what it is that's holding you back, limiting your potential, causing you stress, doing all this unwanted stuff. Okay? Now, let's go back to where we came from. What is this dynamic principle? This common word. And that common word happens to be survive. You can imagine that dying is quite a painful affair. You can imagine that living very long is a very pleasant idea, and that dying is a very unpleasant idea. And you can actually see that if you look at your actions, they got everything to do with survival. And the funny thing is that when we look at an object, that object is here in a sort of like a continuous existence. In other words, it is surviving. But we see this bit more in animated, life animated things, such as animals, such as plants, such as insects, such as humans. right? Now, apparently your mind has got a lot to do with survival. And, well, let's just break it down and make it very, very, very simple. Why do you eat? You say you want to live, right? Why do you drink? To live. If you don't feel too well, why do you go and see a GP? Because you want to live. All right? Why do you resort to vitamins and supplements? Because you want to enhance your life. Why do you do sports? Maybe even go to the gym. Take an extra nap when you need it. You're doing all these actions to prolong living, surviving. Now, you would do the same thing for your kids, most likely. You would raise them, feed them, make sure they got plenty of rest, make sure they get some knowledge, some education, so that they can actually handle life for themselves. So, let me ask you this question. Let's say you are part of a group. It could be a political group. It could be a group of friends. It could be your work. Now, let's say there is a situation, the survival of that group is at stake, and you're being asked to put in a few hours of your time. Pro Dio, in other words, without benefits, just to make sure that the group makes it and continues, or can continue to exist and flourish, prosper. Would you be willing to sacrifice a few hours of your time if that is truly your group that you love or you like? Would you be willing to participate a few hours of your time to keep that group going? Just a quick question. Would it be a yes or a no? Absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah, all right, yes. In other words, yes. Why do you do this? You do this because you want that group to survive. Now, here's another one. Let's say they're out in the street, or they come to your door, they ring your doorbell, and they're out they're actually doing collections. And let's say these collections are for children who are really in dire straits, in some war zone. And there's no help because their parents are on the battlefield. And you're being shown these pictures, and you're asked to do a small donation. Now, you've never seen these kids in your life. They're in a different part of the world. Have you ever been in a situation where you actually got your pocket, your wallet, and said, yeah, sure, I'll do something? I'd like to have your answer on that. Have you ever participated in such a campaign? All right, Anita said yes. All right, Kyle? Yes, okay. Also, always research before donating. Smart. Jason, always. Fantastic. Ruth, yes. All right. So, you're actually helping somebody else to survive. Now, the first 4 urges of survival that you can actually find in the book, Mr. Hubbard calls them urges. He also calls them dynamics. I know it's a few minutes past 8. We're going to wrap it up in a few minutes, so don't worry. And dynamics are simply urges. And we have this urge to survive as self. And that will be number one. Number two would be the urge to survive through sex and children. In other words, this is surviving as a family unit. The third urge would be to survive as groups. It could be any group, any social group, political group, your work. It doesn't really matter. You could consider that your country is a group, that your city is a group, that your football team is a group. It doesn't really matter. And the fourth one would be to survive as mankind. So I've just given you some examples of surviving on all these four dynamics. Now, there's one more thing here involved, because all of these dynamics, they actually have symbionts. And that's the last quote for tonight. If you want to help me, Dita, symbiotes. That would be the last quote. All right. So, symbiote says, any entity of life or energy which assists an individual or man in his survival. Coming from Greek, sim plus bio. Sim means together, bio means life. In other words, together living. So, let's say you have a dog, and that dog can assist you in survival. It gives you pleasure. It can change your mood when you're down. It can help you to protect. So your dog could be a symbiote. You could have plants in your room which would live together with you and would provide you with oxygen, for example. That would provide you with shade in case of sunshine, for example. It would provide you with nice colors. That would be a symbiote. Now, you, when you want to eat, you will need your cutlery. You will need your plates. You will need your cooker, your pots and your pans. These will be energies or material objects. That would also be symbiotes. In other words, you're thriving, you're trying to survive on all these four dynamics, including your symbiotes. Yeah, that is actually on the third page, and as you're actually going to read along, you'll find out that your mind is trying to find the optimum solution of survival on all these four dynamics, including its symbiotes, right? So you're trying to achieve optimum survival for yourself, optimum survival for your children and partner, and perhaps more of your family circles. You're trying to have optimum survival for the groups that you're part of, mankind. Okay? So I want to end off here. We're not completely done for tonight. Dita is here. I have a quick question for you. Dita, did you get the links from Sylvia? You did. All right. Now, so far, just a quick feedback. Was this interesting to you tonight? Was this interesting for you? Did you learn something? I'm just looking down here because that's where my screen is. All right? So basically, the whole thing, this whole webinar is aimed to help you to get a better understanding of your own mind, what is going on in your own mind. And like I said, in part 2, we're going to go into what is this thing that is just causing all that self-sabotage, right? And of course, you can read all about it in the book itself. And some of the people here tonight actually have the book. It's an inexpensive book. You can actually get it for 20 euros, including shipping. And it's a complete life changer. Because like I said in the beginning, there is no book like Dianetics. It's a truly unique book. It's not a motivational type of self-help book that gives you tips and tricks. This is just straight to the point. It tells you what it is that sabotages you in your life. And it tells you straight to the point how you can fix it. And I can tell you, it actually works. Hundreds of thousands of people have actually found out and improved their lives considerably. All right, now, I need to see actually what kind of links we have, because there's 2 ways that we can study Dianetics. We can study Dianetics simply by reading it, grasping it, getting the understanding of the mind. But if you want to go deeper into that, there is something that we offer, and we are a non-profit organization. What we offer is an extension course, which is a home course that you can actually do with the book, and it helps you to actually get started and tackle the root cause of your self-sabotage, so to speak. It helps you to bring about a bigger understanding. You could consider it a bit like a weekly coach, or a coaching form from time to time, if you will, because there's a supervisor involved to help you to get through it. It's inexpensive. It's 30 euros. So you can actually get it as a package, book plus extension course, for 50 euros, including shipping. And it will help you to really understand the subject matter, understand the mind, knowing what can be done, and it will equip you with the tools to start helping yourself and start helping somebody else. Got it. So I'll leave it with Dita right now. She's just gonna pop up the link quickly so you can see for yourself what there is to get some improvement, to make improvements in your life. I see that there's 3 links here, so I'll just let you click on that for a few minutes. I'm going to enjoy my tea, and I let you have a look for yourself. Okay, guys. So, like we mentioned in the beginning, we're actually dealing with a science. That means we're dealing with something that when you apply it, you can predict. And you can actually get results. I've had amazing results myself from this. As a matter of fact, I would not be here without this topic. I would not be a good speaker to do lectures and webinars and these kind of things. I went through some major changes from stammering, stuttering, anxiety stomach, on the phone, talking to people, to being totally confident. I could go on and on. I'm not going to do that tonight. We're going to actually, in part 3, we're going to actually discuss some results that you can have. Yeah? The bottom line is the stuff really works. There's nothing like it. Now, I just have a last question before we end off. Is there anybody here tonight who would like to give it a try? Who would like to start reading the book? Or says, you know what, I'm actually want to do the deep plunge. I want to go for the whole coaching lineup. I want to take the course and the book for 50 euros only. If that's so, I'm totally happy to help you out personally whenever you have a question. I know, Kyle. Yeah, you have. Your life has changed immensely. Yeah. So, guys, Kyle is all the way from up north, Northern Ireland. Like I said in the beginning, he has followed many webinars. He's been an enthusiastic reader. And he keeps telling me on a regular basis, sends me an app, just from reading alone, how much his life has actually changed. And he actually confirms that also other family members and friends have noticed that he made some very positive changes. Another thing that I can offer you is that maybe some of us, or some of you, have ever considered having counseling, or have ever considered seeing somebody, talking to somebody in order to get rid of some kind of a burden. The whole idea is that Dianetics offers such a procedure, which is way more effective than counseling. It's also very fast, and it produces quick and dramatic and lasting changes. And if you want to try that, let me know, because we're willing actually to extend such an offer and say, well, you know, come on over, you're going to get a free session to experience Dianetics for yourself. So, how does that sound to you? Because maybe, you know, I'm just asking this question. Like maybe there's people here who say, you know what, I had this thing happening to me, but I never recovered from it. And it's still on my mind. And it keeps coming back. You could actually handle that quite quickly with Dianetics. Is there anybody here who says, yeah, I would actually like to try a Dianetics therapy session? And in any case, if good, all right, Anita. No, thank you for that. Let's make that happen. In any case, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Now, finally, last question, and then we're going to end up for tonight because I kept you on your chair, behind your desk, whatever it is, for a full hour and almost 20 minutes. Do you guys feel inspired to come back next week again for part 2? Okay, good. All right. So you guys want to come back next week? Next week, we're going to go into the nitty-gritty of the whole thing and get to find out what it is that keeps you down and keeps you from being your best. So that was it for tonight, guys. You've been a great audience. I loved all the interaction doing together, the question and answer, everybody getting it. So it seems that we're going to have a wonderful year. Let's make the best out of it. Let's, with all the madness around us, let's focus on ourselves and lift ourselves up and make it an amazing year where you get to flourish and prosper. Okay? That's it for now. I hope to see you again next week. Bye.